All right, here we're going to be talking about volume and surface area. So we're going to be trying to find the space that's inside a shape, which is the volume, or the space that covers a shape, which is the surface area. We're just going to be talking about two shapes that you're familiar with, which are rectangular prisms and cylinders. Really just to get comfortable with using the formula sheet and all these different abbreviations that we have on the formula sheet. These are all defined on the formula sheet, but it might not be that clear what they actually mean. So I'm just going to go over them kind of quickly here to talk about what each of these letters means. When you see a capital B, that stands for the area of the base. So when we have a three-dimensional shape, like a pyramid, we're going to have a base shape on the bottom. It's a two-dimensional shape. That one happens to have like a rectangle, maybe a square on the bottom. That is the base shape. It's a two-dimensional shape on the bottom of a three-dimensional shape. The capital B stands for the area of the base. So you actually have to figure out what's the area of that base, and then you're going to need to use that number in the formula. P stands for perimeter in general. When we're talking about three-dimensional shapes, it's going to stand for the perimeter of the base. That means we're just going to add up all the sides of the bottom face of the figure. H is going to stand for the height. That could mean a two-dimensional shape or in a three-dimensional shape. It really talks about going straight from the top, that peak, straight down to the middle of that shape. So in a pyramid, it's going from the peak of the pyramid straight down to the middle of that square. That's the height. L stands for the slant height. Which is going down the slope of the pyramid. So from the peak still, down one of those triangles, down the side to the edge, that is the slant height. W stands for the width, and R stands for the radius. Radius is half of the diameter, so this is very clear on your formula sheet. They show this picture. R is going halfway across from one edge of the circle to the middle, where the diameter goes all the way across that circle from one end to the other. Radius is always half of the diameter. All right, so we're going to start off by just talking about rectangular prisms, which simply, it's just a box. These formulas are on your formula sheet. You do not need to memorize these. I'm just going to record them here. The volume is the length times the width times the height. Surface area is 2LW plus 2LH plus 2HW. Basically, we're just going to multiply each of the combinations together. We're going to do length times width to find the area of the bottom, and then we multiply that times 2 because we have two of those. We have a top and a bottom. That's where that formula is really coming from. You're just finding the area of each of the sides, and since there's two identical sides, we just call it 2LW. Length times width times height for the volume just involves multiplying the three unique numbers here. So the volume is length times width times height. It actually doesn't matter which one's the length, width, and height. You can reorient that box and change those around. As long as you're consistent with which one you call the length, which one's the height, and which one's the width, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to call this the length, this the width, and this the height, but it really doesn't make a difference. We're just going to multiply those three together. 6 times 9 times 11. That gives us that we have a volume of 594. And our units are miles, but we're talking about the volume. We're literally talking about the number of cubes that will fit inside that box. So 594 cubes will fit inside of that box. It's miles cubed. You're not cubing the number. You're just talking about the units there. And then for surface area, I'm going to keep the length, width, and height the same, just to be consistent. We're going to use 2LW, 2 times 6 times 9, plus 2 times 6 times 11 plus 2 times 9 times 11. You really just want to make sure you hit each combination, the 6 and the 9, the 6 and the 11, and the 9 and the 11, and they're each multiplied times 2 because there's two identical faces. So you're going to multiply all those out. You should get 108 plus 132 plus 198, and altogether that's 438 miles squared. They were literally talking about the squares that fit on side of that, on the face of that box. So covering each face, it would take 438 squares to cover. All right, sometimes they're not going to be given so simply where you're just given a picture and all the dimensions given to us, so we're going to have to break down this word problem. A truck has a rectangular prism trailer that has a height of 12 feet, a length of 40 feet, and a width of 12 feet. What's the volume of that trailer? So we're trying to find the volume of a rectangular prism, so we're going to use this equation, length times width times height, or the length is 40, the width is 12, and the height is 12. We're just going to multiply those three numbers together to give us 5,760. We're talking about feet as our units, and we're trying to find the volume of that, so we're talking about cubic feet, or feet cubed. So that is how we find the volume of that rectangular prism. All right, on the next page, we're going to be looking at cylinders. So to find the volume of a cylinder, we're going to do pi r squared times h. To find the surface area of a cylinder, we do 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. All right, so first I want to just label the height and the radius. My height is 9, my radius is 2. Now I'm going to plug those numbers into that equation. The volume is pi times the radius squared, which is 2 squared, times 9. You can just do all of this in one step in both Desmos and your handheld calculator. It will follow order of operations correctly, but if you're going to do this one step at a time, make sure you square this 2 first. It will give you pi times 4 times 9, which when you multiply those together is 113.04, and again, our units there are cubed. Right, the surface area, same variables, 2 times pi times the radius squared, which is 2 squared, plus 2 times pi times 2 times the height, which is 9. Multiplying this out would give us 25.12. Multiplying this stuff would give us 113.01. And then we could add those together to find the full volume, or sorry, full surface area, which is 138.16 meters squared. All right, now we're going to read this word problem and think about what it's really looking for. A lot of the times it's not this simple. I mean, the bolded word there makes that pretty clear what we're going to look for. Sometimes they're asking us to like fill the tank or find the space that's inside the tank. That's the same thing as asking for the volume. So I'm talking about a cylindrical tank. So I know I'm going to be using the volume of a cylinder, which is pi r squared times h. And they give us a height or a depth of 24 feet and a radius of 18.8. So we're going to do pi times 18.8 squared times 24. Find the full volume of this giant tank. It's going to be a big number. It's 26,635.24. And we're talking about volume, so whatever units we're using, they're going to be cubed. Sorry, that box was definitely not big enough to fit that number. That's what you should have gotten when you multiplied all that stuff out. All right, try to do the rest of this on your own. If you need help, ask for help.